Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the SBDC here in Bakersfield and also the host today, and we got a great program. It's great to be back with you today, and we're here for webinar number 278. So coming up later in June, we have a variety of different topics that we'll be talking about. We'll first have Michael Balstad on transitioning your business. If you are looking to buy or sell a business or retire, if you're looking to close your business, if you're looking to sell to employees, a variety of different options that are available to you when you're looking to transition away from your business, and he'll discuss those. Sean Palmer, another one of our SBDC professionals up in the state of Washington, will be joining us with some pricing strategies and some really interesting things happening with all of this inflation. And a lot of businesses are using some rather novel approaches to pricing. He'll give you some really nice strategies. Ruth Hedges, the queen of crowdfunding, will be here on June the 21st. I mean, who doesn't want to celebrate the first day of summer with the queen of crowdfunding? I know I do. And then June 28th, Celeste Young Ramos will be here with our food and beverage training program that'll kick off in July, part of the City of Bakersfield grant program that includes also technical assistance and one-on-one assistance. So a lot coming up in June. But what's up today, the last day of May 31st, 2023? Well, you know, our regular feature at this beginning part of Webinar Wednesday is the Economic Corner. And the Economic Corner is going to sidestep the federal debt ceiling. Yes, we are sidestepping that. We're not going to talk about that. But, you know, if a sidestep was a dance, I think I would be really good at that. So we'll let whatever plays out with the federal debt ceiling, but we will come back to a debt ceiling a little bit later. So our special guest today will be in, and Lorna Kibbey will be here, and it's exciting to have her back on Webinar Wednesday talking about leader versus manager. Leader or manager? What are you? Well, maybe you'll find out later. Our Capital Quarter is about our small business debt ceiling. Yes, we can take a federal issue, a federal crisis, and turn it into how it works for our small businesses. And Capital Quarter will do that in addition to talking about, you know, our disaster relief, and also as the spring weather follows the wild winter here throughout Central California. What a welcome relief, this mild spring that has really helped facilitate this wonderful, wonderful spring after a very wild winter. Our community calendar appears to be truncated, but it is going to spotlight Cal Poly's AngelCon tomorrow, which is a really interesting program. We'll talk about our small business toolbox. Our SBDC toolbox gets a new bullet. We will add that next week as the HR hotline has been vetted. And always, your questions, we'll take your questions at the very end of today's presentation. After Lorna has presented, we'll take questions. We will be filling up the chat box full of resources and other comments. And of course, we will have our poll for today. So our poll question today. Let's go to poll question number 1. Always good to start with the first one. And it is going to be about our program today. We talked a little bit about leader and management. So do you consider yourself a manager or a leader? And are you, number 1, your choice is a manager. Number 2, a leader, or do you consider yourself both a leader and a manager? Just kind of getting an idea of what's going on in the room today. So just, are you consider yourself a manager, a leader, or both? We have about 76% of you already in. So time to jump in, get a couple more of you in. And do you consider yourself a leader or a manager? Give you just another couple of seconds to jump in, leader or manager or both. And we're going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results with you. And what we see that now 43% of you consider yourself both a leader and a manager. 29% consider yourselves a leader and 21% a manager. So thank you for that. Of course, we did get 7% of you that considered yourself neither a leader or a manager. So got to get to that 100% somehow, I guess. So, okay, great. Let's move along to the second poll question that we have. And our second poll question is, let me set this up for a second. In the pandemic, we started doing a lot of what I used to call whimsical type poll questions. And, I've heard that those have really been missed. So when the opportunity came up to have kind of a fun topic on a poll question, this is what I came up with. And it has to do, of course, with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. And the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is getting a new name. Yes, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile that has been around since, in one way, shape, or form, since 1936. Is it going to be called the Frankmobile, Oscar the Food Truck, the Doggy Diner, or Hot Diggity Dogmobile? Yes, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile has got a new name. Same dog, new name. Is it the Frankmobile, the Oscar the Food Truck, the Doggy Diner, or Hot Diggity Dogmobile? Yes, give you another couple of minutes. We got 55% of you already in with the new name for the Oscar Mayer Mobile. It's a new name. Is it the Frankmobile, Oscar the Food Truck, the Doggy Diner, or Hot Diggity Dogmobile? Okay, thank you for participating. Right now, we have 75% of you in. And with that, we're going to end the poll and share the results with you. And what you see is 53% of you are going with the Hot Diggity Dogmobile. I'm sorry, that is not correct. So we have 27% of you, not Oscar the Grouch, but Oscar the Food Truck. 27% of you, sorry, incorrect. The correct answer is the Frankmobile, 13%. So, and 7% came up with Doggy Diner, which there really was that Doggy Diner for those of you, kind of a East Bay, Oakland, California tradition back in the day. So thank you for participating. And yes, if only 13% of you think it should have, think it the Frankmobile, maybe Oscar Mayer did not get it right on this one. Okay, so thank you so much for that. And let's get on with some more serious content today. And look, we're leading off with the toolbox today, the SBDC toolbox with a number of our SBDC tools that are available to help you and your businesses. I mean, sure, we could pack, a dozen or two qualified business consultants and staff and students at our CSUB School of Business and Public Administration into that toolbox, but we're just going with a lot of the resources that are available. And you see those there. And we're doing that as the kickoff, as we have showed you this hotline for complimentary human resources for employers, 800 number. You can call with a resource question. And I have been giving it kind of a disclaimer the last few weeks while we've been promoting it until we had a chance to vet it, fully vetted now. Got some great comments, some great individuals who have actually talked and solved problems with this. So we're ready to go full speed ahead with the complimentary human resource hotline for employers. California labor law is a very difficult issue. It's very complex. And this is a great way to get no-cost HR consulting free of charge, courtesy of America's Job Center and produced by the Motherlode Job Training. So wanted to let you know, and thank you for those of you that have reached out to me and told me that they had a very pleasant experience. You vetting it and letting us know how well that went has gone a long ways. And if you'd prefer to read this in Spanish, there you go. I know in the past we've had them side by side, but once they hit the toolbox, they each get their own slide for today. So use the hotline if you need it. Our economic corner today, of course, we're sidestepping that debt ceiling. So our look on the economy for you, and just looking at all the things that are happening in the global economy, makes it look like we're going to really need to get our resident economist back in here again. And Germany, to start off with, was the first European country to enter recession. 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Germany is in a recession. And we're starting to see that really high energy cost affected Germany after the invasion and the suspension of use of fuel and other oils from Russia. So their fuel cost went up, and now foods with inflation, and really have kind of driven Germany into that recession. Here on the home front, our U.S. consumer spending. Gotta love those consumers if you're a small business, and consumer spending is important. It jumps in the latest report that was out in April. So consumers are still spending, and that is kind of worrying the Federal Reserve, because they're hoping to slow down that consumer spending and slow down inflation that it still remains over the Federal Reserve's estimates. And there was actually a Fed study that came out this week from back in October of last year. And the Fed study finds that Americans feel that they're worse off for the first time since 2014. Or actually, they're worse off since 2014. So that is not encouraging news, and inflation pretty much drug that on. So the Federal Reserve is going to meet again and ponder an 11th rate hike. They've had 10 rate hikes. They'll meet on June 13th and 14th. And I agree. It appears time for our Webinar Wednesday resident economist, Dr. Mark Evans, to join us again and explain all this in much better and longer detail. Okay, so what's going on in the disaster front is we have kind of a recap of some of the federal programs that are out there. We still are under a federal disaster declaration for much of Central California as a result of storms in December. A lot of storms also in March, 2 separate ones. Those separate have brought a lot of different federal resources, but they brought other resources as well. And those are state resources and local resources additionally. So Kern and Mono counties in our 3-county region are under the declaration, where they have been directly impacted, and a lot of federal resources are going on, whereas it's still the disaster resource centers are still open in Bridgeport and Mammoth Lakes in the Mono County area. So there's locations that have been open now for 2 weeks in Bridgeport at the Bridgeport Memorial Hall, Mammoth Lakes. And I hear from individuals that have attended it that it's been very well received, a lot of different resources that you don't expect to be in a disaster resource center, such as the Department of Motor Vehicles, for example, the Franchise Tax Board from the state of California. They're helping those that have been affected by the disaster. And remember, the disaster is really disaster relief is really for those that have suffered, a loss, and it's not really a catch-all insurance policy if you didn't have insurance yourself. But for lower to moderate income individuals, it can be a real blessing in some of the things that they can provide. Okay, so our debt ceiling for small business, and I'm going to cover this very quickly. Is there a debt ceiling for small businesses? And I like to think it's our debt to equity ratio. And this is something that should be covered in probably a minimum of about 60 to 90 minutes. But really getting to know your debt to equity ratio, which is the amount of debt that you have divided by the equity. And so the debt is everything that you owe, both in the short and longer terms. And the equity is your money that you've put into the business. It's your earnings that you've retained. It could be money that's been invested by partners or shareholders. So knowing that debt ceiling for small business, there is a debt ceiling, in my opinion, because banks usually will follow this, either 3 times 1 or 4 times 1. If your debt is too high in relationship to the amount of equity, they will turn down your loan for that purpose. So just real quick, there shows our debt to equity ratio. Get into this when we have more time. I think 3 minutes is about the perfect amount of time to cover this. But again, to really get complete knowledge on this is something, this information comes from your balance sheet. So go into your balance sheet and looking at this and calculating it and comparing it, not only understanding that you have a debt to equity ratio, but compare it to your industry, because industries fluctuate widely. And that's why you don't know what a good and a bad ratio is. And it's going to depend on what industry you're particularly in, because a bakery is going to be different than a small manufacturer. On our community calendar, we have AngelCon that is coming tomorrow, and that is going to be hosted by the Cal Poly SBDC in San Luis Obispo. It is going to be live on June 1st at the San Luis Obispo or Slow Brew Rock. A nice brew pub in there. and also available on YouTube Live. Tickets are still available for the in-person event. And there you see they close tomorrow morning, but there'll be 6 companies pitching for over $100,000 in investment. And that is a fun event. Trust me, I've been there. Not this year, though. So if you've liked today's webinar, please go to Google and find us there, and also throw in some nice remarks. If you have an issue with our webinars, or you have an issue with any of our services that we provide at the SBDC, please contact me by email. And now let me bring in Lorna Kibbey. Lorna is our special guest and coming back to Webinar Wednesday, a veteran of Webinar Wednesday, as a matter of fact. Really a fantastic background in leadership and management and dealing with employees. Her book, Becoming a Better Boss, your guidebook to 25 fundamental management responsibilities, published in 2019, I believe is in its 2nd print now. Received her master's degree from the University of South Florida, national speaker, does a lot of work with SBDCs around the country. Lorna, thank you so much for joining us on Webinar Wednesday as we celebrate our 10th anniversary this year. And take it away, please.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. We're switching out here. There we go. Am I good? Am I golden?
You are so golden.
Fantastic.
Here in the Golden State.
So I want to tell you all about a couple of people in my life that I've known who are leaders and managers. It's interesting when you did the poll, Kelly, that 50% of the people polled said they have a very distinct role as either leader or manager. Interesting, because there really is a difference in those 2 roles. I mean, by definition, and even the skills required, which we're going to talk about today. But these 2 people, I want to tell you about it because I think it illustrates the difference. So one of the people that I wanted to tell you about was my pastor a few years ago, a leader in our church. And he was a leader. He had such vision. I've never known anyone that had vision the way that he could put things together and see things. I mean, his visions were just so far beyond what any of us had ever really envisioned for our church that it was kind of mind-blowing. He was amazing in that way. So he was a great visionary, and he had these ideas, and there's no question that he brought to everyone there a higher level of oh my gosh, I can't speak, a higher level because of his ability to visualize. Another person in my life who I would consider a really, really great manager was my direct boss at one point. Now, she was different. She wasn't the visionary that the pastor was, but she was very good at making sure that we got results, that we did exactly what we were supposed to be doing. I mean, she would set goals, and she was kind of an enforcer. She would make sure that we met those goals, and we would do things the way they needed to be done. If we didn't, it wasn't good. But as a result of her really expertise in management, we accomplished results. We accomplished our goals. We did really great things. And you can hear there that they're very different people. One I consider a great leader, one I consider a great manager, but they're coming at it from different viewpoints. But they do have one big thing in common. They're both the boss. The pastor, who was the visionary leader, he had people that worked under him that took care of the operations of the church, that helped him to do something with those great visions that he had. And my manager, that was my direct boss, she was the boss. She had a group of people under her that she supervised to accomplish the things that she knew we needed to accomplish to get those results, to make sure we were in compliance. They were both bosses, which brings me to this question for you. What is the job of a boss? Now, see, I've struggled with this myself personally. You heard my book is called How to Be a Better Boss. And when I wrote that book, I struggled because I didn't know if I wanted to write how to be a better leader or how to be a better manager. It was kind of a struggle. So I decided to go with boss because that would cover all things, right? Okay. So let's just talk about the job of a boss, putting the leadership role and the management leader role aside. if you had to sum up what is the job of the boss in just a few words, like maybe 7 or less, could you do it? I would love to see you put it in chat. If anyone has some thoughts, put them in chat. Like, can you sum up what is the job of the boss, like in 7 words or less? Let me see if I can get any takers on this. That would be so cool. I'd love to see what you say. See if I get anything. Are you taking a minute to think? Gonna play with me? What is the job of the boss? Okay, if there's something here, I'm not seeing it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you my definition of the job of a boss. The job of the boss, here's what I think it is. The job of the boss is this, to get the work done through others. That's the job of a boss, to get the work done through others. There's no boss that can do it all by themselves. They need people to help them accomplish that work, right? So the question is, what is that work? What is the work that we're getting done through others? And that's what I'd like for you to think about for a second. Maybe take some notes if you don't want to give me some comments in chat. Maybe take some notes for yourself. What do you think are the fundamentals of leadership? When I talk about getting the work done through others, what do you think is most important? What do you think a leader needs to get done? What comes to mind? Maybe creating the vision, maybe strategic planning, maybe team building or organizational skills, decision-making, maybe delegation, motivation. Are you thinking all those kind of things? Because what I've done with all of those things is I've tried to think of them all and make big lists, really through a lot of webinars and seminars that I've done with live people who help me with this, and put together all of those things, all of that work. And I've made a model and developed 3 core principles. And let me show you the model. These are the 3 core principles. And I know it sounds a little corny, but the way I like to explain it is simply this. When you conceive and they believe, we achieve. And when you think about all the different work that a leader does or that a boss does, you can see how it would fit into one of these 3 principles in this model. So think about it, let's say delegation. Okay, delegation is a tough skill. But where does it go in this model? It goes in achieve. I mean, we can't achieve the work if we don't delegate some of it. Since we know that the very definition of a boss is to get the work done through others, then we could put delegation in achieve, because we're not going to achieve results unless we have people participate in doing work. And you could go through all these different concepts of leadership that you're probably thinking of and put them in this model in order to summarize really the work of a leader or the work of a manager. Which brings us to the question of the day is leader versus manager. Really, I mean, what is the primary difference in a leader and manager? Well, if you've explored that question at all, you've probably tried to Google what is a leader and what is a manager. And what you find is there is a distinct definition for each one of these terms. So Webster definition, okay, a leader by definition, the ability to influence, motivate, and direct others to obtain desired objectives. The definition of management: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling people working in an organization and the ongoing set of tasks and activities they perform. For those of you who said that you are either a leader or a manager, do some thinking right now, some personal reflection on, does this definition fit with what you said in the poll? And for those of you that said, which was like 43% said both, can you see yourself fitting in each of these definitions? Is it fitting for you? Because what this comes down to really is this: by definition, managers focus on tasks. My boss, she was very focused on tasks, making sure that we got things done the way they needed to be done and by the deadlines that were imposed on us. Leaders, by definition, focus on people. Our pastor was very focused on getting people aligned behind him and helping them to see his vision so that we could go forward with his vision. He wasn't really so focused on the tasks. So by definition, managers focused on tasks, leaders focused on people. So the question is, which is better? which one of those is better? That's a good question. Which is better? Well, there are times when we really need a manager, right? There are times when we really need to be focused on the tasks at hand. And we need somebody who ensures that we comply, that we hit the targets we're supposed to hit, that we report to work, that we do the job we're supposed to do. But there's also times that we need a leader, because if we just all are stuck on compliance all the time and enforcement of rules and regulations, when do we ever even have time to think outside the box that maybe we're in the wrong box? Maybe the rules need to be changed, or there's something else other than what we're just doing every day. So the answer is it depends. And I bet some of you have already guessed that, especially the 43% who said you think you're probably both of them. It can really be situational. I mean, actually, neither one of these is better. We need both great leadership and great management to succeed, because leaders who can't manage can be a disaster. And managers who can't lead, they're even less effective, because leaders who only see the future, who only live in their visions, often lose sight of what has to be done to get there. Make sense? And managers who can only focus on right now and making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, they sometimes just kind of lose all sense of purpose and just get stuck in the day-to-day routine of making sure that we're supposed to do that, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So neither one of these is better. There's really a time when we need a leader, and there's a time when we need a manager. The goal: a boss who knows the difference between leadership and management and can employ both skill sets as needed. That's our goal. The truth of it is, you can't be a manager without practicing leadership. And you can't be a leader without practicing management skills. If you do, it's very possible that you'll get stuck in management land or leadership land. Let me tell you a little bit more about my pastor. My pastor was very, very stuck in leadership land. He had zero management skills. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that if someone from his staff didn't come in on Sunday mornings to open the church and turn on the lights, we would have had our services out in the parking lot. That's how bad of a manager he was. He had no control, understanding, or desire to manage finances, operations, or anything within the church. He was really stuck in leadership. And while he was a great visionary and had great vision, we really couldn't get anywhere because we weren't taking care of both things. He was really stuck as a leader. So that's not a really great thing. And what, a little backstory on that's interesting. He was a leader, a pastor who kind of specialized on smaller congregations. And he had been in several churches when he came to us. He had been in many. And at the time, I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. A lot of diversity, a lot of strength. He's seen a lot of things. He has a lot of experience. But in retrospect, I wonder if maybe one of the reasons that he kept switching churches, because as with our church, we started to fall into a little bit of a pit because nobody was managing. Nobody was really steering the ship. We could just see where we were going, but we didn't know how to get there because we didn't have the manager. That makes sense? On the other hand, being stuck in management land. Yeah, that's my other example. My manager was so stuck in management land that it was really, in a way, kind of depressing for all of us because she had no vision of the future or desire to look at. She was just really stuck in making sure that we did what we were supposed to be doing on time. She wasn't really open to new ideas because she had no vision for the future. And, she actually over time, we saw her kind of become depressed she became more and more stuck in management land. It wasn't really a very good place to be. And I've seen that in other people who are stuck in management land. You know, they kind of get bogged down with all of the responsibility and all the tasks, get into kind of a rut and kind of lose the ability to be optimistic and to look for that future. So what we really need are these people, these 43% of the people that said they could do both. We need one person who understands the difference and can move into whichever mode is needed as the situation requires. That's what we really need. Bosses with both skill sets manage the operations of the organization at a higher level of success. It's been proven over and over again. And to take this further, there really are specific competencies for these two disciplines. There is a set of competencies for leaders and a different set of competencies or skills for managers. Now, I have to tell you, because I can't in the time that we have today go through all of the competencies. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but I wanted to show you, the book that was mentioned, that is in its second edition. Thank you for mentioning that. Becoming a Better Boss. There's a page in this book that's dedicated to this. And there's a chart that you can look at if you look at this book. And it has a chart of the different, well, it's kind of hard to see up there, but anyway, there's lists of competencies. And it tells you what are the competencies for a leader versus a manager. And there's 24 different competencies listed. So we're not going to go through all 24 of those. But the reason I mention that is because it's a really good tool for you if you're interested in this, to take that list and just go through with a pencil and not show anybody, but do it like a self-assessment. Let's start checking where you are on the list. Are you here or are you here? Are you in the leadership set or are you in the management set? And sometimes what you'll find is that you're really stuck in one of those tracks and you don't realize it. If you're checking back and forth all over, that's probably our 43% that said, I think I'm both, because they're switching back and forth as the situation requires. So that's just for your use if you're interested. It's available on Amazon. Now, of course, with this great power of understanding the competencies and the differences in leadership management comes great responsibility. Don't you love that? Great responsibility. So that takes us back to our model: conceive, believe, and achieve. So let me show you a few examples of these competencies for leaders versus managers, how they fit into this model. So you'll see how it works. All right. So I'll just show you a few of the competencies, the examples, and explain how this works when you have to move back and forth. So we start with the model with conceive, right? And when we conceive, this is the conceive part of the model is a lot about self-awareness. You see, as a leader or a manager, you can't really help people to envision the future if you don't understand what it is yourself, right? So first you have to understand your mission. You have to define that vision. So it's kind of like when you're on an airplane and they tell you to put your mask on first before you put it on someone else. I mean, you have to understand first. You have to know what you're asking people, what the vision is, what your expectations are, so that you can even help them to understand what priorities are. So remember that the word conceive means to bring a thought or an idea into being and to be able to imagine it. And when you're thinking about how to conceive, 3 things here I recommend. The first thing is you have to be willing to explore, which means you can't be like my boss who's not open to new ideas. You have to be open to those new ideas, crazy things. And you know what? This is probably not strange to you because we just went through a pandemic. And we're doing a lot of things that we thought were impossible not that long ago, right? We had to survive. So even things that we had explored in the past, we had dismissed, had to come back around. And I'm sure you guys have some examples of that. I sure do. Things just like this webinar, we didn't think it was possible to use technology to the level that we are. So being willing to explore, that's one part here when you think about the whole conceive part of the model. Being bold means trying it, being willing to take a risk and the whole COVID pandemic kind of forced us into taking some risks that we wouldn't have taken otherwise. That's a good lesson for us to remember. Just because it's scary doesn't mean sometimes that it's not something that's worth trying, something that can really work out great, especially being open and listening to the ideas of the people around us. But you don't jump in blindly. And that's where testing assumptions comes in. You can't just say, okay, this is the vision, this is where we're going, and everybody's going to be there with you. That's not how it works. It cracks me up that a lot of organizations, they go out like to the top of the mountain and they carve their mission and vision in stone, and then they bring it down to the people and say, here, this is wonderful. And the people are scratching their heads going, what does that even mean? Ever experienced that? So, they have to be involved. You can't just assume that people are going to be on board with you. You can't just assume that it makes sense to people. You have to be very careful to make it clear, to make sure that you're communicating it well. So the competencies in this area, just a couple. The first one is that a leader has more long-range perspective and a manager has more short-range perspective. And you can see that's necessary. I'm not saying it's good or bad either way. It depends, but you need both. So great leaders, they have that future vision. They're able to see where we're going. They're able to see big picture. They're able to see possibilities, but they also understand that if we don't take steps right now to get there, we never will, right? So we have to be able to do both. So when you're leading at that higher level, bosses see that connection between the future and now, and they're able to consider both of those things in decision making to make sure that we are making progress towards our future all the time. It means you're working on two dimensions, on the here and now, every day, always with this in mind, right? Always with this in mind. So that's an example of one of these. Here's another one. Great leaders seek change. Great leaders understand that change is inevitable. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not, and they plan for it. They're ready. They see it as something that actually many great leaders really enjoy change. That gives them, it revitalizes them and inspires them. But managers understand that change is nice, it's good, it's necessary, but at some level, and people need stability too. So you can't just be changing just to change. There has to be some stability in that. And when you're implementing change, you have to keep what you can the same so that there's stability. You know what I'm talking about here? There has to be some stability. So you don't change just to change. So what we're saying is, when we're leading at a higher level, bosses understand change is necessary. But we also understand on the management level that successful change requires some level of stability. So that's an example of a couple of competencies in that area. When you're looking at this, when you're figuring out how to conceive this first step in the model, explore, be bold, test assumptions. Don't have everybody jumping off that mountain until you've checked to make sure that everybody believes we can reach that next peak, right? Make sure everyone is with you, which takes us to the next part of the model, which is believe. People have to believe in what we're doing. And sometimes we don't spend enough time really trying to get people to align behind us to make sure that we're all together and all clear on what's going to happen next. And that's the first big thing, is clarity on this. You have a vision, and like I said, sometimes people don't even know what that means. Really taking time to explain that vision, to be clear about it, to check on those assumptions, to check that people believe it's possible, that we can go forward, giving them an opportunity to give input and to be a part of the process is so important. Patrick Lencioni, who wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, one of my favorite quotes from him is that you can't expect people to buy in if they haven't had an opportunity to weigh in. Yeah, I think that nails it. So you want to ask them openly for their opinions, empower them, clarity, transparency, let them trust so that they can really all be aligned and going in the same direction. So here's a couple of examples of competencies for this one, for believe. Great leaders gain power through personal influence. Great managers gain power from position and authority. Well, this is interesting because as an appointed leader, as an appointed manager, a certain amount of power comes with that. But what we understand is that just positional power, you'll do this because I say so, is not going to get you there. There has to be personal influence. When people believe in you and trust you, you're going to make progress. If you're just doing it because they told you to, that's probably not going to be a lasting deal for you at all. So what this means is that when we're leading at a higher level, bosses understand that positional power will not work to bring out the best in employees. Positional power is only temporary. I'll do it because I have to get a paycheck for a while. But if you're not able to switch that over and get people behind you to believe in you, then that's probably not going to work out in the long term. Here's another one. Great leaders build success through employee commitment. Great managers build success through employee compliance. We want people to be committed to what we're doing. Of course we do, because when they're committed, they're excited, they want to succeed, they're all in, right? But there's a time when we have to ensure compliance, that people are reporting to work on time, that people are not using overtime when it's against the law, just little things like that. So there's a time when we have to have an eye on compliance. So we have to be able to do both, just like with all these others. There's a time to be a leader. There's a time to be a manager. But bosses understand when they're performing at a higher level that commitment is a much greater motivator than compliance. Much greater. So getting that commitment, which means being clear, being open with people, being transparent, and empowering them so that you have everybody going in the same direction instead of people going all over the place trying to figure out what they're doing. Patrick Manchonis from Bakersfield. Cool. That's awesome. Okay, so that takes us to our third part of the model, achieve. So this means we have to lay out a plan. I mean, it's all cool to have everybody going in the same direction, but somebody has to do a plan. There has to be goals established. It has to be something that we can track, something that we can work together on. So lay out a plan, a strategic plan of some kind, and address problems. And I think this is one area where I see people really struggle is addressing problems, because many of us really love a harmonious work environment. I mean, who doesn't, right? We love a harmonious work environment. We love for everything to be peaceful and happy at work. And sometimes when there's problems, we don't address them just because we don't want to disrupt what's going on. We don't want to create disturbances. And we end up causing greater problems because we don't address the problems. And we never achieve the results that we were trying to achieve. So we have to be willing to address problems, which means checking progress. That's why I said in the beginning, in Conceive, we defined expectations a long time ago. We set goals a long time ago. We got everybody to buy into those goals. Everybody's going in the same direction. So now we've got to check progress and report back on it. And you can see just from what I've said so far that these three things are linked. You can't have one piece without the others if you want to achieve results. You can't just have a great vision, skip the whole buy-in thing and expect it to happen, right? Or you can't just get everybody behind you and expect to have great results if you haven't defined where we're going, right? So it all has to go together. So here's a couple of examples of competencies for this one. Great leaders develop vision and strategy. Great managers plan, budget, and design detailed steps. So you can see what's happening here is that leaders are developing the vision and they're developing strategy. The whole strategy around how we're going to accomplish something, but we need to execute. And in order to execute, we need the plan. We need to look at the budget. We need to look at the details. We need to look at compliance. We need to look at how to accomplish it. So again, we need both of those things, not just leadership or not just management, but both of those things. Higher level bosses understand vision and strategy are ineffective without execution. I mean, what's it all for if we don't actually do something and accomplish it, right? All right, here's another one. Great leaders think strategy. Great managers think tactics. Yes, and it's important that we do both of these, so important. So bosses understand strategy is the action plan that will take us where we want to go, and tactics are the steps that will get us there. And we need both of those things in order to achieve results. So achieving results, here's one big piece of achieving results that's missing, that worries me a lot, because when I do live sessions and I ask people, what's involved in this, people leave it out so often. And that's just celebration. Celebration all along the way. When you're achieving results, when you're defining goals, you're meeting those goals and you're making progress, don't forget to take time to celebrate. And it can be very simple. Thank you goes a long way. Just showing appreciation. I appreciate where we are. Actually, just showing that we've met a goal or how close we are to meeting a goal is in itself a form of appreciation. Keeping people informed of how we're doing. Look where we're at. We're not there yet, but look, we're going up. This is fantastic. So don't forget the celebratory piece here, to let people know how we're doing, to report back on the results that we're achieving, and then you can continue to remind them where we're trying to go, and maybe make some readjustments for how we're going to get there. So that's just an example of some of the competencies for the pieces of the model, and the difference in between a manager and leader. And what the point I'm really trying to make is, and I hope it's coming across clear, you need both. You need both skill sets. You need to be able to switch back and forth. We know that bosses who can do that, who can employ both skill sets, can manage a higher level of success, will make better decisions, they will sustain higher performance over time, they're going to get results. And isn't it all about getting results anyway? I think so. I'm going to stop for a minute and see if we have questions before I close. So Kelly, if you want to help me out here, or Maureen, do we have some questions out there?
We don't have any questions. We have a very shy audience today. But there is still time to get questions in the Q&A box if you have a question for Lorna. I'll double check the chat and make sure we don't have anything in there, but I see a lot of our resources, a couple of welcomes, a lot of resources for the pandemic, or for the disaster relief.
Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and finish, and then I'll stop again to see if any questions have come up. All right. Because there's just one more thing that I want to make sure that people hear from me. And that is, I think it's super fantastic. I mean, it says a lot about you that you're sitting here listening to this webinar, taking this hour to try to improve. Obviously you care, you're trying to learn, you're trying to do better, and applause, because thank goodness. I mean, that's the greatest thing that we can do for ourselves. What I see is that once the show's over, so to speak, a lot of people kind of forget about it. It's all kind of inspiring when we're listening to it live and when we're thinking about it, in the moment. But once we turn off the cameras and everything, we kind of forget. So I'm going to issue a challenge to you, a challenge. I have 3 suggestions for you, and all I'm asking is that you do just one thing. All right. So you have to make a promise to yourself that you're going to do something with what you just did, that you're going to really make this hour worth the investment. So here's something, give it some thought. Are you a leader or manager? Now, I love that Kelly did this poll at the beginning and you had your answer. Do you stick to your answer? I'm wondering, if we redid the poll now, would the score change? Yeah, are you sure that's the right answer? Which one do you think you are? And are you stuck? I mean, are you stuck maybe in leadership land or in management land? Just give it some time, do some personal reflection, and really think about it. Are you able to switch from role to role as needed? Do you even understand the competencies? Do you need to look into that a little more? Maybe you just choose one area to focus on this week. Conceive, believe, or achieve. And now that you understand the difference in those, where do you think you could have the greatest impact? Is it conceive? Is it possible that you're not getting the results you want because people don't really completely understand. They're not really clear on what the vision is, on where you're trying to go. Maybe there's not clarity and transparency that's making it possible for them to understand your expectations and your priorities. So maybe that's what you want to focus on. Or is it believe? Is it that we know what we're supposed to do? It's just that, yeah, right. Not everyone's really on board with it. Not everyone believes it can happen. They don't believe what you believe. They don't see that we can actually reach that milestone, or we can complete that goal. So maybe some work on alignment, on getting everybody on the same page, giving them a chance to weigh in so that they can buy in. Or is it achieve? I've done all these things, but we're just not getting those results. We're just not getting there. So maybe you need to do some more follow-up, look back at your goals. Where are you? Have you been reporting out on where you are on your goals? Or do you just wait until the end of the year and say, well, here we are on this one, Are you repeating? Are you looking back at that? Are you monitoring it? Sometimes goals have to be adjusted, So maybe that's where you need to focus. So that's the second thing you could choose. Just choose one area and just focus on that. And maybe you want to do one-on-one, go buy the book. There's the QR code, and you can see that list in there. Plus there's 25 fundamental responsibilities that all fit within this model. The model is discussed in the first couple of pages, so you can see how it all fits. So I'm challenging you to do one of these things to really make this investment of time worthwhile. Okay, Kelly.
Here I am.
Okay. Oh, I see something here. Let's see. Can you talk more about when leading at a higher level, bosses understand that positional power will not work to bring out the best in employees? Yeah. Okay. So positional power. Positional power is power that's given to you because of your title. I'm the boss, and therefore I can make you do whatever I want you to do. But the truth is, and this goes a little bit into motivational theory, we can't really make anybody do anything. We can threaten them, we can make them for a while, but unless their needs are being met, which means they're motivated to do it, it's not going to last, right? So higher level bosses can't just say, I'm the leader, we're going over there, and because I say we're going over there, we're going to do that. If I don't really believe that we can go over there, I'm gonna give a satisfactory performance appraisal. I'm gonna do what I need to do to get my paycheck and make it look okay. But I'm not really vested in what we're doing. I'm not really believing in it. So if I don't really believe in it, if I'm doing it because I have to stay employed, that's much different than I'm doing it because I really believe that we can do this, and I want us to accomplish this, and I want to be a part of the team that accomplishes that. I hope that helps a little bit. Positional power is just not enough in the long term. And yet, positional power is needed for compliance. And there are times when we need to ensure compliance. So gotta be able to switch when you need to.
Lorna, I got a question text to me. So
okay.
I'm going to paraphrase it for you. Mm-hmm. It said, today I've learned that I am a better leader than manager. Is one of the things I could implement is doing more micromanaging.
Okay, so I'm not going to say that I'm an advocate for micromanaging. No. But what you have to be able to understand is that, and actually that's really an excellent question. Thank you to that person. See, the thing is all of you probably weigh heavier in one area or another where you're better. You're a better manager than you're a leader, or you're a better leader than a manager. And that's okay. For me, I'm more of a leader. Like for me, strategic planning is really tough, to sit down and work out that plan and lay everything out, So I make sure that I have somebody on my team who's really good at it and loves it. So I think part of being that leader manager is recognizing that, you know what, you want me to appreciate people. Giving parties is not my thing. I don't love these big celebrations, and I don't want to do that. But Peggy is great at that. Peggy would love to plan a luncheon for the team. So we're going to have that luncheon and I'll show up. So I think part of it, and being a great leader or a great manager, is recognizing that you can't do it all. You can't be great at all 24 competencies, well, there's 48 when you consider 24 on each side, but you can make sure that those things are in place. Maybe by getting some help, having someone, because there's so many great strengths on your team. Sometimes we're not using those strengths to our best benefit and to theirs.
Okay. Fantastic.
Sure.
Time.
Well, this is how to contact me if you need me. lkibbey@lkibbey.com. Feel free.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been too long, my friend.
Definitely.
We'll have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Just jumping in real quick, kind of show you again what's coming forward. Moving forward in June on Webinar Wednesday, we'll be talking about business transitions, pricing strategies, crowdfunding, and our food and beverage training program. And that'll be that. So for Lorna Kibbey, I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back next week with Webinar Wednesday edition number 279. Everybody have a great week. Thanks, everybody, and bye-bye.